Hi, I'm Aiman. Welcome back to my auto repair and car videos. In this video, I'm going to show you what a bad CV axle looks like. The first thing we're going to do is talk about what a CV axle is, and then I'm going to actually cut into a CV axle to show you what it looks like. You know what a CV axle is, right? It's the constant velocity axle that you usually find on the side of a wheel that keeps your car at a constant velocity when it's turning. This is what a CV axle looks like, and the reason that we're doing this video is actually because my dad, his CV axle broke down yesterday, and right here we have the broken CV axle. I just want to talk first that this is the original CV axle that we had. We actually replaced it in 2018. It lasted us 8 years and 200,000 miles. This was an aftermarket part that we got from AM Auto Parts, and it lasted us 40,000 miles in 2 years. So definitely not as long as the aftermarket part. And as you can see now, it's completely broken. Did I say aftermarket? I meant this is the original part. This is the aftermarket part, and we've already replaced it, but we'll talk about that later. First, what I want to do is show you what it looks like when you cut it into a broken CV axle. First off, I want you to compare the difference between the original CV axle and the aftermarket. You'll see that there's a lot of aesthetic differences. I mean, the important parts are pretty much there. However, with the rubber, you can see that this one is of much stronger quality. It also has much more divots, whereas this one only has like 3 divots, and the rubber is like not that strong. This one, really hard to squeeze. This one, ew. This one's also really hard to jiggle around, but this one, this is the most important part. That's not good. It's not supposed to be dislodged like that. It's supposed to be like hard to move around, but this is terrible. Let's cut into it now. I'm gonna cut down this seam right here. I wonder if there's like any warnings against this, if there's like any latent pressure within the gasket, but I don't think there's anything dangerous about this. You can see that I'm not sure if you heard it, but there was a release of air inside the gasket, and that now rubber is really hard to cut through. I'm gonna cut through the top parts first. Alright, so we ended up losing all the important footage of me actually cutting it out, so you didn't get me to exert my manly forces to wrestle this apart. But we've taken the CV axle apart, and as you can see, this is the original rubber that was on it. Just like, it's not really that strong. Also, when you're doing this, make sure that fluid will get on you, so make sure that you have a towel nearby or that you're not wearing nice clothes. And here, you can see what the joint looks like. You can see that on the inside of the receiver, there are 3 divots that receive the axle. It goes in like that, and that's how it's held in. And you can see that there's tons of black fluid, like completely, it's basically submersed in black fluid. Also, if you want to be a mechanic or an engineer like me, then if you want to see what the actual inner workings of the joint are, it's actually not a ball joint like I first thought it would be. It's actually 3 wheels on this axle that act similar to a ball joint, but not entirely. I'm going to do that 360 shot. So all you would do is just insert this, and then it would rotate within that, and it would sort of act similar to a ball joint. But if you want to develop contraptions similar to this, you don't just have to use a ball joint. You can also use something similar to this. And one thing I want to point out is that this CV axle came loose. This is important because that is what happened to my dad's car. Last time his car broke down, and what happened was he was driving along, and suddenly he heard this loud popping sound, sort of like a flat tire, like a tuck 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 tuck. And as he was driving, so he stopped to inspect the vehicle to make sure everything seemed right, and of course the tire was not flat at all. But he kept driving, and as he got faster, the popping sound would get more intense, it would get more faster. So my dad did think that did think that a possible cause of that sound was the CV axle, but to him it was strange because usually problems with the CV axle only happen when you're turning, because constant velocity only deals with when you're turning a car. So what I'm saying is that, for example, if you turn right and you notice a problem, you know that the problem is with the right CV axle. If you turn left, then you know the problem with the left CV axle. But he was going straight, and as he kept driving faster, the problem got more intense. So it was very weird to him that this was the CV axle. But he did remember that before that, he remembered that he hit a pothole, and he thinks that's what dislodged the CV axle. And it's important to talk about dislodging the CV axle because with this aftermarket, it looks like the rubber isn't strong enough to protect against dislodging because it's so weak. Whereas with this one, if you try to dislodge it, the rubber itself holds it tightly. So the original part is stronger at keeping the CV axle in the right place, whereas the rubber on the aftermarket part is not strong enough to keep it not dislodged. Okay, so my dad challenged me to dislodge the original axle using my strength, and I don't know, this is probably not gonna go well. And as you can see, I'm having a very tough time with it. I mean, it's bent, but it's not technically dislodged. I mean, actually, basically, I guess I dislodged it, but you can always bend it back into position. I think I actually did dislodge it. But it looks like the rubber on this is so strong that if you put it back the way it's supposed to, it looks like it would still function perfectly. But I think I did dislodge it. So there we go. So when you have the axle shot up like this, if you hit a pothole or some other disturbance like a curb, and this gets dislodged, what will happen is that one wheel will be spinning and the other will not. The one that's not spinning is going to be the one that has a shot axle. And what's going to happen is that after it gets shot, what's going to happen is it's going to separate, sort of like this. And usually the one part of the axle will be hanging down on the ground. I mean, granted, if the axle did fall off, it would be very easy to find out what the problem is. But for most people who are not mechanics, the first thing they do when they hear a noise from their car is they stop the car, they look up the problem on their phone, and they probably come across videos like this one. And my main point is that if you hear that weird sound, do not drive. If what happened to my dad happens to you, if you drive over a pothole or a curb, you will get in an accident. My dad could have gotten in an accident if he didn't have the knowledge of a mechanic. My best advice in this situation is to call a tow truck and get them to bring it back to a garage or to your house where you can maintain it. But because of the pandemic, my dad actually drove home. And the reason why is because you can't ride in the backseat you can't ride with a tow truck because of the pandemic. You have to call an Uber to get home, which, you know, is effectively the same thing as riding in the tow truck. But obviously, he didn't want to spend that much time and money on getting a tow truck. But my best advice is to get a tow truck. It's very important that you recognize that there could be a problem with your CV axle if you hear such a noise, because depending on your environment, there's a very high likelihood of an accident. I know in my case, we have a very big pothole near our house. If my dad wasn't careful, he could have gotten into an accident right near our house. So it's very important that if you are driving home, you drive carefully. Alright, so that being said, we replaced our old CV axle with this new one from CarQuest. We probably can't show you because it's very hard to get an angle. But we actually have a problem with our CV axle on the right side, so tomorrow I'm going to be doing a video on how to replace the CV axle on the right side of a Honda Civic. So if you're interested in Honda Civics or just in general car repair, check out my videos because I do tons of those, and check out that video in particular. And I'll see you there. Now, I'm Aiman and signing. And thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and look at other videos on EyeOnAiman, especially the auto repair video and car maintenance videos. And I will see you there. But for now, signing out. Peace.